I think maybe a question people could ask is, okay, forget where do we worship or how do we worship? Why do we worship? Do we have to even do this in the first place? And I think we've already talked about Genesis here a little bit, and I think we can get into it a bit more with Genesis 1, 3, 4, what we see going on there, and particularly in Genesis 4 with Cain and Abel, who are making sacrifices to God, and one is pleasing and one is not. And we're not even told before that that they're supposed to do this. So what do we know, say, from the patristic tradition or how these passages have been traditionally interpreted that help us understand a basic answer to this question? Do we even have to do this? And why do we? Is this, I think the answer is this is what we were created to do. But let's try to unpack that a little bit so it sounds a little less glib.
I like to point out that as Orthodox Christians, we are maximalists. So the question we receive often is, do we have to do this? And the answer is, we get to do this, right? So that's the first thing, is we want the fullness of whatever a spiritual life means. Even the word spiritual or spirituality today, it means whatever you want it to mean. It's a difficult word to use. The best way to say it perhaps is the life in Christ, or the way of life being capitalized in English, right? I mean, God is life himself. He is the source of life and life himself.
And you and I might be inclined to capitalize the W in way as well.
Exactly. Absolutely. I do that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, my catchphrase for this show is the way of the life of faithfulness to the Evangelion.
Right. I mean, way, truth, life, all these. In English, we capitalize them.
Because they're a person.
Exactly. And when I write, I do a lot of capitalizations. I mean, it's throughout my writing to make the point that we're talking about not an idea or an ideal, but someone. We're talking about God himself ultimately when we understand these things. So as we go back to this question, you really answered it. We are created to do this. You could say that if we live naturally, the way a human being was created to be, if we live naturally, we worship God. It's just part of what it means to be human.